Okay. Mr. Doorkeeper.
The Honorable Nathan Deal, Governor of the great state of Georgia, awaits to address this body.
Please admit His Excellency the Governor to this august body. Morning, Governor. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the chairman, to the members of the committee, to those of you who serve on the greater committees, and to those of you who are here just because you want to know what's going on. I compliment you on being here. I thank you for your courtesies that you have extended to the department heads as they have testified before your committees and subcommittees, and I appreciate that fact. Now, I'm not one of those that believes you ought to repeat speeches, and I try to avoid that. And over the last several weeks, well, a couple of weeks now, you've heard me outline in several different venues some of the changes that I envision would make our state better. Today, I want to focus on one that you already know is very close to my heart, and one that you have cooperated with, and one that has shown great progress for our state, and I think holds even greater promise for the future. Now, as you know, through your efforts working together, we have increased assistance for those in our accountability courts across this state. We've increased the use of drug courts, mental health courts, and other community-based alternatives that are serving our nonviolent offender populations. The state, by doing so, is avoiding cost, we're improving public safety, and we are preserving the families of each of these participants. Now, many of you have shared the testimonies with me of what you have heard in your local districts. They are pretty much the same as those that Sandra and I have heard as we've traveled across the state. These testimonies are indeed inspiring. So, therefore, for the fiscal year 2016 budget, I'm recommending $5 million to help further expand the use of accountability courts and community-based solutions for nonviolent adults and juvenile offenders. These programs are indeed working. They are offering an opportunity for those to be able to be diverted before they're actually incarcerated in our prison system. And we know that that's important because it does prevent a stigma that otherwise would follow them for the rest of their lives. But you know, in order to convince someone who has been involved in a life of crime to not return to a life of crime requires that we do some things. It requires that we provide the kind of training within the system that will allow them to make a choice, and the right choice. So I'm including over $2.5 million in my budget recommendation for fiscal year 2016 that will go towards supporting vital personnel for the Governor's Office of Transition Support and Reentry and for probation and paroles, as well as ensuring that high-risk offenders, that is, those that are being released but are still high risk for failure, have a temporary place to live while they seek a new life. And now that figure is on top of the $653,000 that was appropriated in the fiscal year 15 budget already. By beginning these initiatives in this fiscal year, we're able to take advantage of an additional $3 million in federal funds that will be available to us to let us do even more. By assisting with housing, by addressing stigma, and by making it possible to find employment, and by encouraging the learning of marketable skills, we are conveying to our fellow Georgians that the mistakes of their past have not sentenced them to a life of despair, that if they work hard and pay their dues, then upon release, they will have a chance to move on from what they have done to what they can do. This leaves our costly prison beds for the most dangerous and violent offenders, as should be the case. Education can open the door of opportunity while shutting the revolving door that has plagued our justice system for far too long. As you've heard the often quoted statistic, almost 7 out of every 10 inmates don't have a high school diploma and don't have a GED. That statistic is relevant in what I'm talking to you about now. It may even be more relevant when we're talking about proposed education reforms. Because if we want to stop the revolving door, it's better to stop it on the front end, and that is to keep them in school, let them make sure they get a high school diploma, and when they do that, they are much less likely to move into our prison system because of their failure to achieve that. Now, but we understand that in order to address that problem for our inmate population that we currently have, we're doing some and recommending some important things. First of all, we are recommending establishing 2 charter high schools that will finally allow those in our state prison system to earn a high school diploma, not just a GED. These schools will partner with our newly renamed Georgia Career College system, placing an emphasis on fields where we know that if they secure the skills, they will be able to find a job, things like diesel mechanics and welding. My budget proposal includes money for 28 new academic positions in these key areas, funding for implementation of a GED fast track and learning centers across all prison facilities, as well as incentives for private prisons to participate in this targeted expansion of vocational programs for the inmates that are in their prisons. We can't afford to wait, folks, because we already have too many who need our help. We are currently paroling on average about 1,500 a month. This is why I have started the funding process in the amended budget and continued it in the proposal for next year's budget. Between the $3 million I am proposing for the amended fiscal 15 budget and the $12.2 million for fiscal year 2016, our total for these education reforms amounts to over $15 million. By laying the groundwork for these initiatives in our current fiscal year, we can assure that we can begin offering these opportunities in fiscal year 16 for the start of the 2015-2016 school year. With a high school diploma or a GED, these individuals will certainly be better equipped to get a job and hopefully able to assume a greater pursuit of a job opportunity in the future because they have this basic education behind them. In addition, my budget recommendation reflects my desire to expand the number of hours that an inmate can spend learning, as well as access to resources that can advance his or her education. For instance, Georgia will hire a number of full-time corrections teachers across the state rather than the traditional part-time, along with 3 principals to head the various regions of Georgia. This will actually mirror the rigor and discipline of an actual school environment, and we hope will produce better results. I've touched on a handful of items in my budget that will more effectively prepare these in our existing prison system for productive living. For the ones already in place, and you're the ones that have helped us put those in place, and I thank you for that, we know they're working. As I shared with you at our biennial in Athens this past December, I gave you some statistics then. Let me update some of those now. Currently, there are 34 women now taking advantage of the charter school available at the Lee Arundel State Prison. We've already had one who's graduated, received a high school diploma, and we expect that we will have 7 more graduate by June of this year. Through our initiatives, many offenders and their families will begin to prioritize education. Now, that's an important point. For the first time in their lives, education has a meaningful upside to it. And when these adults who have children, and those children are in our school systems now, when they begin to understand how important getting an education is for them, I believe it definitely translates to their families that are not in the system. And that change of a mindset truly has great opportunity for future generations. If we give people new hope, we have to fund those things that strengthen those opportunities. By including money in the budget for accountability courts, education initiatives to help offenders, and other reentry efforts, we are actually saving money as we deter crime and make use of cost-effective alternatives. In fact, I'm told that for every dollar that we invest in these educational measures, we save $5. The number jumps to $12 when we're talking about vocational or technical education programs, because those jobs are much more readily available and are long-term and sustainable. These are worthwhile investments. I believe that by restoring hope through second chances for those Georgians who've made a mistake and by giving them back the opportunity to put their lives on track again, we save not only them and their future, but the children and those families from which they come. With all of these reforms, some would argue that we're not doing this, but I would argue that we are. We are making us a safer state. Let us not lose sight of that fact as we debate the best way to achieve these goals. We are already leading the nation in meaningful criminal justice reform. And by meaningful, I'm talking about things that work, things that change the dynamic and the trajectory of this proverbial revolving door. With your help, we have come a long way. We are constantly having people from other states coming to look at what we're doing and saying, how can we duplicate that in our state? Those are the kind of things that I think not only just make us the #1 state for criminal justice reform, it is an indication that Georgians are willing to confront the failures of the past, those failures being those who dropped out of our school system and found a life of crime as an alternative. We can do this. We can make Georgia safer. We can make the future of those in our system and their families and those future generations meaningful workers in our state's economy. And I believe that's what all of us want, regardless of party affiliations. We want Georgia to be better. We want Georgia citizens to have greater chances and greater opportunities. These reforms are a meaningful part of doing that. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your dedicated work as you have worked through the budget proposal, and I look forward to working with you during this session that is already in progress. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the block grant hearings will start at 1 o'clock in this room. Thank you very much.